Oh, this is a bit scary. Thanks for having me today, and I'm looking forward to spending the day getting to know everybody and meeting you and hearing about different things. But I thought I'd start by sort of explaining where this ridiculous title came from. Now, like all stupid ideas, this started in the pub, and I blame this young lady down here because she wanted me to come and do some workshop or a talk or something. And I started by saying, I know what I'll do. I'll do a talk and I'll call it Plants Are So Much Better Than Animals. But I thought about it and I thought, well, there's two things wrong with that. One, I probably would have the audience on my side, and two, it's unlikely I can talk about that for half an hour. So I changed it to this. And partly because I'm going to get you all on my side, but partly because this is what I really believe. And I'm going to spend the next half an hour trying to explain to you why I chose this ridiculous title. I should say to start with, I firmly believe that everyone in the world is the most important person in the world, regardless of who they are and what they do. But I think the people in this room are just more important to us. So Eden is the land of eternal optimism. Our collective mantra is that human beings are amazing creatures, and given the right opportunities and the right skills, we can do pretty much whatever we want. And we believe that the only way to tackle the challenges of the 21st century are by standing together, and working together, and looking after each other's backs. Our school team, where I work, is passionate about the health and well-being of young people. Because if you don't address that, then pretty much everything else falls by the wayside. So today I've chosen some very real concerns about childhood, which we think are key to the health and happiness of young people. And I'm going to try and highlight why we, the people in this very room, already have the answers. So you're going to know all this stuff anyway. A friend of mine who's an advisor in school, he's a maths and arts advisor, which is quite weird. But anyway, he's an advisor in schools, and I was talking to him just out of the way, and he describes schools at the moment as being a place of brutal compliance. It's probably an understatement. And I thoroughly believe that the current mainstream education system is failing our children and crushing teachers and the teaching profession. And I could go on about that for ages because I can get quite cross, but I'm not going to. Except to say that because of the state of education right now, it has to be our job to step up and highlight the other things that are important to young people. So this is about our role as educators. It's about our role as sensible adults, if there is such a thing, and it's about our role as people in society. So during this chat, I'm going to make some wild generalisations. I already have. I may sound a bit arrogant, but I do that for a purpose. And I will be sticking my tongue firmly in my cheek while I'm talking. But underneath of that, I really do mean what I say. We are the most important people in the world. And finally, this is a celebration of you and all the wonderful things that you do. Nobody should be telling you what to do, pretty much because you're already doing it in many different ways. So hopefully, I'm going to sort of try and highlight some of those ways to you here and now. So, here's the thing. I'm going to get this one as well. Oh, I missed that slide already, see? It's probably not right anyway, but I'm going to move on to this one, because life choices. I'm going to start by talking about you. We shouldn't use cliches, but what does success look like on the telly? Now, I don't have a telly. I don't think I have time. Every now and again I get to watch telly. I'm always shocked how rubbish adverts are. It seems to me that just by spending money, you can be successful. You can buy happiness, you can buy friends, you can buy youthfulness and good looks. And apparently that's how you measure success. However, you're all here because you've chosen your career slightly differently. You defined your criteria for success in a different way, your own way. Success isn't just measured by what you have, but who you are. And who you are is a result of what you do. Well, I'm guessing that what you do really matters to you. So let's face it. I imagine all of us could earn a bit more money if we were doing another job somewhere else. But you chose something that you believed in, something that you love, and something that maybe you've always wanted to do. You've thought about what success means to you, and hopefully you're happy with your choices. Well, imagine the world if everybody lived like that. Where purpose and passion trump profit. Where people live like you and live their best lives now. As far as I can tell, that would be totally in line with a more sustainable world. A happier, healthier people living in the now consumption, partly because we're so poor, partly because we don't feel the need to fill all those gaps in our lives with pointless tap. We spend more time with ourselves, we spend more time surrounded by people who are happier and motivated because they've achieved what they want in life. It's not to like. So, just by getting up in the morning, you're creating a revolution. You're showing people that there is another way. You really are the most important people in the world. So, let's get down. Oh, by the way, these are just pictures of friends of mine, people I've met. I've been lucky over the last 30 years to work with some incredible people and meet some inspirational experiences and have amazing conversations. And I'm sure that you could all fill the room with stories about that too. Climate change. Let's get down to the nitty-gritty. It's a game changer. Apparently 2/3 of young people are scared of climate change, according to the Beano Brain, which is a survey that we did last year. And David Attenborough said, how can I look my grandchildren in the eye and tell them I did nothing? Let's face it, sooner or later, almost every parent everywhere in the world is going to be having that conversation. So not only are young people going to have to cope with a difficult and uncertain future that isn't going to get any better, but they will know that their own parents are part of a generation that could have done something, but chose not to. These young people are going to have to be pretty resilient. Our education system currently says absolutely almost nothing about climate change. It's changing, but it's still not great. And even less about the sort of people we need to be if we're going to fix these problems and still be healthy and happy. So this is the time for challenge. It's also a time of opportunity. If we got ourselves out of this mess, then it has to be one of the greatest achievements that humans have ever done. So what can we do? Well, you're all educators. And we, the educators, are unshackled by the culture that exists in schools. It's time to step up and use our skills and our passions to help inform and prepare the next generation with solutions on how to deal with the problems that the 21st century is going to throw at them. We need to change the script. We need to become heroes and heroines, putting ourselves and our students back in the driving seat, which frankly sounds a lot more fun than any of the alternatives on the table at the moment. No pressure, but this room is full of the most talented and experienced people who can tell stories, kindle passion and engage with young people. We need to use our communication skills like never before. You, specifically you, tick all the boxes. By working with nature, you deal with the currency of the unusual, the inspirational. And unlike our poor teaching colleagues, you're allowed to be passionate and personal. They will remember their time with you forever. So make it count. If you make a spark, you will never know where that spark may end up. And it's not just you. Your organisations need to join in, walk the talk and be exemplars, lead from the front by modelling best practice in business, from sustainable business procurement right through to getting to the hearts of the staff members so everybody talks from the same page. We need to demonstrate that solutions are here and now and available. It's our gift to the world, and if it's not valued now, well, it damn well will be. Because it's not just important, this is essential. You are the most important people in the world. Right, we're really brave now to talk about biodiversity, mainly because I've just talked about climate change and they go hand in hand together, and I am no expert. But you know about all the problems. It doesn't matter what you measure and how you measure it, the stats just make me want to cry. And when we talk to young people about biodiversity, they don't really understand it. They don't really get it. They understand the words, but they don't understand why it matters to them. And we know that facts aren't enough. This is time for emotion. We know it just isn't just about red squirrels and pandas and things like that. It's about us, and that's why it matters. And you are literally the best people, best placed, best time to talk about this. Your inspirations, your skills will bring that alive. And once again, you are the most important people in the world. Let's talk about health. During the 19th century, wealthy philanthropists developed urban parks when they were building huge cities. And they developed gardens. And they knew that being there close to nature was really important. Every time a Victorian hospital was built, they had a garden next to them for the healing powers of nature. And it's a bit of a shame that we don't seem to carry that on or develop that as an idea. Apparently, at the moment, 1 in 6 young people have a mental health problem. That's 5 children in every classroom. About 35,000 children in the UK are being prescribed antidepressants. And it's not surprising. We give some young people so much pressure. No free time, SAPs, student loans, social media, adult activities. It's no wonder they're falling over. And if they're battling under the weight now, just think how it's going to be when climate change starts to kick in. Look at what's happened to the mental health and well-being of the country after COVID. It's taken a proper battering, and apparently it was the same after Spanish flu kicked in. People just struggled for years afterwards. The term eco-anxiety is appearing more and more, and I get to hear about it all the time. You know, from an awful lot of young people. Some say it's a good thing. It might actually frighten people into doing something and take action, but I'm not so sure. Any form of anxiety can't be good, and this is the time when we should be empowering young people, not stripping it away. But we know that action, any action, however seemingly small, is a great cure for this eco-anxiety and pandemic. If young people take control of some of their lives in the world now, they're far likely to feel happier about the future. We need to concentrate on helping young people cope with resilience and confidence. This subject is a biggie, and no one has the answers. But we do know that nature connection is a winner. There is an endless list of studies out there about the benefits of nature with young people. Apparently, if you're in hospital and you're looking out over some green fields, you're going to get better a lot quicker than if you're in hospital looking out over a car park. Apparently, if you give a young person a piece of green paper when they're stressed and upset, they will calm down a lot quicker than if you just sit them still. Just being near a residential green space when you're in an urban environment has a positive effect on your mental health. And we know that young people who suffer from ADHD get a really gentler time if they're outside. It can reduce your blood pressure, it calms the fight and flight chemicals in your brain, and it stretches young people's horizons and promotes empathy, etc., etc., etc. This cure, this nature cure, is cheap and relatively easy to access, and has no nasty side effects. You deal with this currency. Your work is all about the natural world and how to connect with it. You unlock the curiosity and the knowledge. You know more about inspiring and facilitating safe and fun experiences in nature. You are the not-so-secret weapon in this nasty and pernicious pandemic. Not only do you do that, you hold the key as a bonus. We need to create a more sustainable world. You really are the most important people in the world. I want to talk about play. We're deadly serious about play in England. It's one of those things that when I started work all those years ago, we never really talked about play, and now it's become incredibly important. And we know more and more about the effects, the beneficial effects of play. Apparently the first 1,000 days of a young person from conception right up to the age of 2 is the most important. It forms the habits for the rest of their life, their health, their mental health, their well-being, and everything gets sort of blueprinted for the rest of their life. So it's really important we look after them during that period of time. Obviously we can't experiment on actual children. There is a lot of work being done on the effects of playless childhoods as well. Interestingly, it seems if you deprive rats of play, they grow up becoming depressed, overweight, and antisocial. A bit like me, really. And I just want to get you to have a quick think about your first or most memorable play experience. Okay, the first thing that comes into your head, the most memorable play experience you had from when you were little. And don't think too hard about it, it's just got to be like, ping the first one that comes into your head. Okay, and if you feel brave enough, if you'd like to turn to the person next to you or someone you don't know, and just quickly tell them about that experience. Exactly. Well, that was just brilliant. If ever you needed an example of why play, or how important play is to people, then you should film this room. You know, the place just erupted with noise and joking, and people waving their arms around and doing things, and it was just fantastic to hear. And it shows just how important play is. You know, grown-ups play, we don't actually change, we don't really grow up, we just change shape. You know, and any adult will play given the opportunities. If we've got, we haven't got time, we're running out of time already. So first of all, I'd like to ask, hands up, if any of those experiences were actually in nature, in the natural world. Fantastic. Okay. Hands up if you were out in the natural world, or you. Well, no, sorry. Hands up if you didn't have an adult peering over your shoulder and making all the rules. Fantastic. Now, I suspect you're slightly an unusual group. Because we've noticed, we ask this question a lot, and because it's just really interesting. You know, and we ask blokes in suits right down to young people in shorts. Well, I'm not saying shorts, but you know what I mean. But anyway, we ask everybody, and it's really interesting that the older generations tend to have more experiences outside in nature, and younger generations put their hand up and don't put their hand up and have had a different play experience, which is slightly worrying. And the other thing is that as you get younger, there are less young people who get to experience play on their own. It's fairly adult-led. And that's also really, really important. So although it's a load of fun, it's actually also quite serious. And in doing it with any group you work with, it's really interesting how play and childhood has changed, and it's changing rapidly. And our experience, or my experience, because I'm old, of play, when I was just given some sandwiches and told to get back at 5, literally, was completely different to the childhood that young people have these days. And the effects of that are fairly important. So the roaming range, is roughly the area in which young people play, has shrunk by 90% in the last 40 years. Now there's all sorts of reasons, like traffic and other things, which are causing that. But it has a massive effect on young people's sense of place, their ownership of the space they live in. The current trend of driving children from cello to Bulgarian folk dancing back to do their maths before they go to bed is common, but it's depriving young people of choice. Self-determination, and interestingly, is removing boredom from young people's lives, which apparently, turns out, is not such a good thing. Free play is where adults don't make the rules, they sit back and let children do that. And for the first time in their lives, young people are given a chance to practice being humans, creating their worlds, negotiating, making alliances, exploring their bodies and the limits of their bodies, taking risks. And it's a chance to practice before they grow up and do all that in a more consequential society or consequential environment. And where does this happen best? You've guessed it. Research tells us that outdoor play is brilliant for that such thing, for free play. The infinite possibilities that open up to a young person in a natural space are far greater than anywhere else. And it's great for their mental health as well as their physical health. Research tells us that the benefits are very, very long-lasting in young people. One summer I worked in Plymouth with a bunch of young people. It was some sort of activity, and basically they destroyed almost every option, literally destroyed almost every option they'd been given. So in desperation they were given to me to take out in the woods, presumably because they thought they couldn't break anything out there, but they did a good job. But anyway, we ran a sort of mix of structured activities and free time and just hanging out in nature, and gradually, and some may stupidly say, we started introducing fire and knives and freedom, and it worked. It was amazing. It worked so well that the funders came to see us in the project, sit around the fire, we made them tea, and they sat around the fire with the young people, and we had to take them back to the office to show them the files of these young people to prove that they were actually the young people we said they were. They were so calm, and part of that was because we were out in natural spaces, partly because they had freedom that they didn't normally have. It was beautiful in that beech wood, whatever the weather. It was an absolutely stunning spot. And they were given responsibilities. Part of it was quite a lot of hard work as well, to be fair, but it proved it worked to me. And not that I need to prove it, but it is a really nice example. And as a bonus with all this stuff, you can't love what you don't know. And importantly, you won't look after what you don't love. We know that connecting young people improves the chances of them growing up to be active and sustainable citizens in the future. So who has all the knowledge and the skills and the opportunities to make outdoor play happen? You have the most important people in the world. Right, I'll probably need to do this again. I'm running out of time, so I'm going to skip this bit. But basically, physical activity. Research shows that running around outside in rough ground and doing things is really, really good for your physical health. Playing outside, nature play is very different to sort of playing football and stuff, which a lot of young people don't like doing, or cross-country runs and all that sort of organised sport. But actually, playing in nature enables young people to explore and discover stuff and do it on their own terms. So physical activity and nature play are so closely linked, and there's more and more research that's going into that at the moment. So, what are we going to do about this? Well, as I said earlier, Eden is the spiritual home of entry-level environmentalism. We get 1 million visitors a year, and they come partly, some of them come because they're sort of passionate about the environment, and some of them come because they're camping for the week and it's been raining for all that time, and then they want to go to the beach again. So it's a real mix of things. So we are very gentle with our messaging, but we do it with humour and creativity and play and art. We talk to people about really serious things, but in an interesting and fun way. We want them to be optimistic, empowered and possibly a bit angry. Our approach to children and young people are similar. We design our workshops to suit young people and teach in a way that empowers and engages, not tests and cows them. And I'd like to share some of our ideas with you. Not because I think we've got all the answers, but because I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say about how we do it. It's something we've developed, and I don't know, we live in Cornwall. We're miles from anywhere, in a hole in the ground. We don't get out much. And it'd be great to hear what you think. Okay, so it really is all right for you lot. You get this stuff. You get cutesy animals with big ears and huge eyes. This is what we get. Yeah, we like cutesy lemons, eh? However, I will say that we do have one of the best classrooms in the world to do it. And we are extremely lucky. So I want to talk a bit about our programme. We have what we call a toolkit, 7 principles that we use to teach about. And I'm going to skip through them very quickly, mostly because I'm running out of time. But I just want to sort of share them with you. And I'm going to be around all day, so please, if you have any comments, if you have any questions, do come and talk to me, because I've skipped hundreds of stuff here. I overplanned massively. But we all, and you've probably heard this mantra, head, heart and hands. We want people to think about stuff, we want people to care about stuff, and we want to give people the tools to do something with their sort of passion. We want them to work with their head, heart and hands. And all our workshops are pretty much try and revolve around those 3 things. I'm going to skip this, but basically we have 50,000 young people visit every year. Yeah, we're knackered. We do online resources, we do teaching online all over the world, and we are looking at sort of writing curriculum, and we work doing lots of teacher training stuff, so if anyone's interested, get in touch. But all our work is in, for and through nature. We talk about nature all the time. It's full of infinite possibilities. If you get bored of looking at nature, well, you just aren't looking hard enough. There's plenty to talk about in nature. It brings in history, it brings in decolonialism, it brings in everything you could possibly imagine, every subject. If you go to a school nowadays, they spend a bit of time doing maths, and then they go around and they spend a bit of time doing English, and then they go and do a test, and it's all siloed. Where in the world does that happen apart from in schools? If young people don't get to learn about systems and don't get to be able to think across the boundaries, then they are in trouble. And, why better to do that than nature? Nature is full of the most complicated yet beautifully simple systems, and we talk about it a lot. And so we talk about connection, not just our connection with nature, but the connections that go on within nature as well. We want people to learn that the world is fuzzy and complicated. We always talk about real things as well. We don't just make stuff up for them to do, to keep them busy. It's about real issues that are happening now. We want to introduce real people who are fighting real fights and doing amazing stuff out there. We really concentrate on that. And this quote here is one of my favourites. You know, it's just what a wonderful lady. She did an amazing job in a beautiful school. Sadly, when she retired, they turned up with a bulldozer and flattened it. But never mind. Storytelling. We tell stories all the time, from non-stop. Because we know that everybody tells stories, as you just did. You love telling stories, and apparently there are only 7 stories in the world. I'm not quite sure I believe that. But we know instinctively how stories work. We know the pattern, how they go. And so if we use stories to hook our learning on, then young people will not only just be doing a bunch of kind of random things, but they'll know why they're doing them because they will fit into the story. And when they want to remember that story, and when they want to remember that learning, they can remember the story, and it hooks their learning onto it. It also gives us an opportunity to dress up and be silly and create silly scenarios and stuff like that. But everything we do, from little tiny ones right through to postgraduate students, we tell stories, and they join in with our stories. Our stories usually have a challenge. The young people go out and sort of solve that challenge and then come back and tell us what they've learned. Like I said earlier, we're deadly serious about play. You know, it's a great way of getting to somebody's heart. And we're not interested in just talking about facts. We want people to talk about passion. You know, we want people to leave with their head up, a bit angry, a bit playful, but inspired up and ready to go. We want young people to change the way they live in the world around them. And again, I love this picture. I've still got no idea what they were looking at, because when I came out, I said, what? They rolled away with nothing. So there's no idea, but curiosity. If you can't get people curious in nature, then go home. But I'm joking. But what a great place to get young people excited about stuff. And again, together. You know, we test children in Britain more than any other developed country across the world. And how many times in the real world do we go out there and do a job on our own, unable to talk to anyone else? It's very rare, isn't it? You know, we've got to work together. You know, we've got to work together for all sorts of reasons. Apart from the fact it's fun, no one can do anything on their own. And certainly, young people need to learn how to work together. Otherwise, the future's in trouble. Okay, so there's my contact details, and again, I'm going to be around all day, so do come and catch up with me. But I'd really love to hear what you think about that, what you any suggestions or anything, that we can collaborate on, because it really is just a stab in the dark. I mean, it's bored for quite a long time, but it is important. How long have I got?
1 minute.
Oh, no. I've got loads more to say. Right then, Jeopardy. I'm just going to say, I'm not doughy-eyed about this stuff. I've been doing this for 30 years, and I'd like to say I've changed the world, but actually all I've done for 30 years is care. We're still banging on about the same stuff that we were 30 years ago, which is pretty depressing. The world is in a bad place. And if you read Silent Spring, which was written in the 60s, that message is still relevant today. So we've got to change the way we do things. We've got to get down and dirty with the bad guys. We've got to work on projects, on partnerships that we've never worked on before. We've got to do things differently. We cannot sit in our nice, safe little world and think we're doing a good job. Because if you look out there in the real world, I'm afraid we're not. We need to be different. We need to work on it really hard. And to relate to young people, if we're going to be honest to young people about the state of the planet and the world that they're inheriting, they need to learn about jeopardy. And the best way to learn about risk and jeopardy is from a book. It's from going out there and doing it. This is where you teach young people to be resilient, work together and face the future with confidence. And I urge you to introduce risk into your young people's worlds. We know that if young people aren't taught how to take risks safely, they grow up and take risks dangerously, if that makes sense. This is where they learn how to become adults. And finally, I'm going to skip through my notes now because I've gone badly wrong knowing that I'm talking about you at the beginning. So I'm going to end by talking about you. Our work sets out a different path for the future. It challenges the powers, but in a gentle way. And we're here to say that things aren't right, but we know some of the answers. Ladies and gentlemen, our job is massive. We deal with all the important issues in our time, from mental health to biodiversity loss, from climate change to the future of the planet. Your job titles, what you're expected to do every day, sounds like something out of a Marvel comic. Except, of course, we haven't all got superhuman powers. But what does that do for us? There's no point in saving the world if we're all going to sit around with it being miserable. We can't be worthy but dull, because who's going to take that up as a cause? Who's going to join us in that party? We have to create a story that is fun and accessible, one that people want to join, not just because they feel they should, but because they want to. And we can't do that if we don't live that life ourselves. I heard a great saying on the radio the other day about not setting like yourself, keep other people warm. And I just thought, oh, that's a really nice way of putting it. But you know you can't look after other people if you're not looking after yourself. Accept your limitations and manage your expectations. Go for walks, enjoy nature, get underneath it. You can't spend your life trying really hard not to give other people a hard time if you're giving yourself one. It needs to be fun for us as well. Be gentle, be brave, look after yourselves, look after your hearts and your souls, but especially your heart. That's the heart that you can connect with other people's hearts. And if we can do that, we can change the world. You can't change the world, but we can. And I'm just going to give you one piece of advice just to finish off, because this is something that matters to me a lot. If you were ever at the end of your tether, if you're ever feeling fed up and pointless and like you've just wasted your life, I urge you to go out and do something great with young people. Because when you meet young people, they're amazing. They're funny, they're goofy, they're passionate, they're interesting, they're optimistic. They're just wonderful. And if we can create a generation of young people like that, well, the world isn't in such a bad place. And there's always hope. So, thanks very much, everybody.